Hi there, this is Siglinda. How are you today? Some of you reached out to me with a question if there was a story behind the Gum Bichromate portraits I've been posting lately. And yes, of course there's a story. Art always has a story to tell, and I didn't just make a series of portraits for the heck of it. First of all, have you seen them? This is one that's framed called Pool of the Fog. But maybe you saw this one, Flood of the Undercurrent. Or this one, Inner Dark Room. Or this one. Now, I can hear you think, how did she create these and what's with these messy sides all around? See that? It gets nice and sharp in here and then there's this mess. Here's another one. You know, the face is fairly sharp and then there's all these brush strokes on the end. Well, very briefly, what is the Gum Bichromate process? It's a 19th century photo process, also called an alternative photo process. And it all starts with a negative. This is a negative that is printed on a regular digital printer with some specifications, but still. And what we do is we go in the dark room and we prepare a piece of watercolor paper, just regular watercolor paper, with chemicals, and then expose the negative onto the prepared paper with UV exposure, either the sun or a UV bed. What does that mean exactly? It means that we get to play mad scientist in the dark room, and I'm talking, you know, like little measuring cups to measure and then mix the chemicals together. I am talking like nice big bamboo brushes that we use to paint or spread the chemicals onto the watercolor paper. And you wonder why I had all these color variations in there. It is because you can mix color into the chemicals and then brush it onto the paper. This would be a base layer without any color mixed into it. So what happens is we prepare the watercolor paper, we make sure it's dry, then we take our negative, we place it onto the dry prepared watercolor paper, and then we take it outside into the sun, squeeze it between a plate of glass so that there is like as close contact as possible, or under UV bed with a piece of glass, and we expose it for a certain amount of time. And then the sun, the UV exposure, will burn an imprint through the lights and the darks of the negative onto the chemicals in the paper. After the exposure is done, we go back inside and we rinse it in a bath of water to loosen all the chemicals back off. That's how we develop it, just water. No chemicals required for the development process. Now there's lots of, every Gum Bichromate print is unique because there's lots of variables at stake here. First of all, to get these full color Gum Bichromate prints, you actually have to prepare the watercolor paper several times and have only one color mixed into it each time. Remember, you're in the dark room. You can't be painting little things here and there. You have to spread the chemical on the entire paper all at once. This is where the brush strokes come from. And so you start with the lightest layer and then you go to the darkest. And each time you have to dry your paper, expose the negative on it outside, come back in, develop it. So it's kind of a lengthy process. And you also have to make sure that every time you place the negative onto the prepared paper, that it lines up exactly, because otherwise you would get a fuzzy image. Now, the way we do that is we make these little marks in the corner. You would also see this in the gum prints, in the finished products, so that we align the marks instead of trying to align the image. And then, you know, the other variables are, you know, one time you may have a thicker layer that you brushed on. Another time it may be a smaller, thinner layer. The sun may not be as intense as another time. You may have exposed it a few more minutes or a few less minutes. You know, the sky is the limit with variations that are possible here. It is a really fun process. It's really unique. It's also a little bit unpredictable, and, you know, I had a professor who would pray to the printing gods every time he made the final layer, which would be black, which makes or breaks the entire piece, but either you win or it's a toss into the garbage can. Now, of course, you know that I'm all about reimagine the possibilities, and whenever I learn a new technique, I am no stranger to applying that very concept. So this negative in particular, I wanted, instead of having just the photographic print, I wanted to combine it with drawing, and line drawing in particularly. So what I did is I scratched on into the negative so that, as you can see here, the drawing would become part of the gum bichromate process. Now, what was the purpose of this series? I was actually preparing for a show that would open on my birthday, of all days. And I had about 40 prints, 40 portraits, finished portraits made. They were not all the 4-layer gum bichromates, because that would have taken even more months of work to prepare this body of work. But a good amount were the full-fledged. And instead of framing them and hanging them on the wall, I had a small gallery all to myself, and I put them all on the floor, this big collage on the floor, side by side. But there was plenty of space still to walk around the floor installation, so to speak, without stepping on it. And then I had 2 or 3 actually framed portraits on the walls. My kids came and helped me install this show, and they absolutely freaked out that I was putting my artwork on the floor. And they said, "But Mama, what if somebody steps on it?" And they saw me work on these portraits, and they said, "Mama, this is so much work, you know, it's going to be ruined." And I said to them, you know, don't worry about it, even though my own heart was like really tiny, wondering, what am I doing? But the point was, it was a social experiment on many levels. So on the day of the opening, I had an opening reception with birthday cake, of course. So on the day of the opening, I had a very plush little carpet at the gallery entrance, a black transparent curtain, and then there was a chair and a box of painter's booties. And so everybody who wanted to go inside the gallery had to put on these booties. But they weren't just the white booties that you buy in Home Depot. I actually wrote a word on each booty, and each word was part of a poem I had written about the other and the self. And of course it was all jumbled, and I told them that it was part of a poem, and I said, well, if there's enough people in the gallery, maybe you could reconstruct some of the poem by putting your feet together and see if the words match up, or you could create something completely serendipitous. Now, my quest was, with this false sense of privacy of this black transparent curtain, I was wondering if people would actually step onto the artwork. One, artwork is typically not on the floor, at least not this kind of artwork. Two, most people knew that these 19th century photo processes are very labor intensive, and so there's like months of work on the floor. There's plenty of space to go around it, but you are wearing these booties, so you know, am I supposed to step on it? You know, is it the intention of the artist, that would be me, to step on it? And so I created this false sense of privacy with the transparent curtain, so that there would be a little bit of a divide between the outside and the privacy of the gallery, so that it feels like you were only in the gallery with the other people in the gallery. And then of course there was the words on the booty that could influence your choice to step onto the artwork or not. And I was just wondering what would happen, you know, because here people would go inside this gallery to enjoy the exhibition, the show. And at the same time, this whole lure of having to make this choice to step on the artwork or not was this confrontation with the self. Like, in full integrity, am I going to do that? And so the other was on the floor, but it is my face, and I'm standing right outside the screen, pretty much watching your every move. So it was a great, how should I say, a great confrontation of the self and the other, where the self became the other and the other was the self, and that takes a lot of wine to wrap our brains around that one. But the end result was that people did step on it. And for months, arguments and discussions ensued in the hallways, whether that was an appropriate thing to do or not. And it became a very emotional experience. People came out of the gallery with tears in their eyes, giving me a hug and saying, I'm so sorry, I stepped on your artwork. I don't know why I did that. For a moment there, I thought that was your intention, because that's why I was wearing the booties. And then I stepped on it and I thought, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm not only stepping on this labor-intensive piece of art, I'm also stepping on Siklinda's face. I can't do that. This is all wrong. And they came running out. Other people came out like a deer in headlights, saying like, I didn't mean to, I'm so sorry, I stepped on it, but they pushed me. And sure enough, the more people that were in the gallery, the more the peer pressure was there to step on the artwork, up to the point where they would just like line up on the artwork, puzzling their feet together to see if they could reconstruct part of the poem. It really was an interesting experience, and emotional for me too. It was one of those things where I wondered, what am I doing to myself in the name of art? And I have video footage of everything that went going on inside the gallery, because I had a camera set up in the corner, and that video footage later on became a great accompaniment on the guest lecture presentations that I was invited to come and give in some contemporary art classes on the whole concept premise and what the goal was, if any, of this social experiment. People also kept asking me if it was indeed my intention that people stepped on the artwork. And to tell you the truth, I cannot give you that answer. I never gave the answer, and I still do not have the answer. It really was an experiment. Now, the good news is that only 1 or 2 portraits actually got damaged. All the other portraits are intact. They're fine. Nothing happened to them. In all their bare, vulnerable, delicate glory, they survived, as we all do, right, as human beings. Okay, well, that's it for now. Thank you for letting me share this story with you. I am no longer making gum bichromates, so these portraits are one of a kind, very unique. All my 19th photo century process work is actually, but this series especially was a powerful experience. It's a strong series, and if you were compelled by this story and you feel that one of these or more of these portraits are appropriate to have in your home, preferably framed on the wall, not on the floor, then I welcome your inquiry, and we'll see what we can put together for you. Thank you. Bye.